I never thought I'd be the kind of person who'd cut off family. Growing up, my parents drilled into me that family comes first. That blood is thicker than water. That we forgive each other no matter what. But they never prepared me for what to do when family becomes the danger you need to protect your child from. My sister Emma was always the wild one. 5 years younger than me, she was the baby of the family who never quite grew up. While I was getting married and planning for kids, Emma was bar hopping and posting Instagram stories at 3 a.m. I used to joke that she was living for both of us since I'd become so boring after having my son, Oliver. The day everything changed started like any other Saturday. My husband Jake was at work, pulling overtime at the hospital where he worked as a nurse. I'd invited Emma over for lunch, hoping some aunt-nephew bonding time might help her settle down a bit. She'd been going through a rough patch, lost another job, broken up with her latest boyfriend, the usual Emma drama. She showed up at noon, and I could smell the wine on her breath immediately. Just had a little brunch mimosa. She laughed when I raised an eyebrow. I should have sent her home right then. God, I should have sent her home. Oliver was 3 months old, just starting to smile and coo at faces. Emma insisted on holding him while I finished making our sandwiches. I could hear her baby talking to him from the living room, and for a moment, everything felt normal. Like maybe she really could be the fun aunt I'd always imagined. Then I heard the crash. I dropped the knife and ran into the living room to find Emma on the floor, Oliver screaming, and a broken wine bottle spreading red across my white carpet. She'd brought her own bottle, hidden it in her oversized purse. Had been drinking it while holding my baby. He's fine, Emma slurred, trying to stand up while still holding Oliver. That's when I saw the cut on his tiny arm, the blood mixing with the wine on his onesie. That's when I smelled it on his breath, the wine, on my 3-month-old baby's breath. The emergency room was a blur of fluorescent lights and concerned faces. Jake met us there, still in his scrubs, his face white when he saw Oliver's condition. The pediatrician, Dr. Martinez, was gentle but firm as she examined our son. How much alcohol was ingested, she asked, and I had to admit I didn't know. Emma had disappeared the moment we arrived at the hospital, mumbling something about needing air. The security footage from our home camera would later show her stumbling to her car and driving away, leaving us to face the questions alone. The blood test confirmed what the smell had already told us. Oliver had alcohol in his system. Not enough to be fatal, thank God, but enough to require monitoring, IV fluids, and a call to social services. That's when the real nightmare began. The social worker, Mrs. Patterson, looked at me like I was a criminal. "You left your infant alone with an intoxicated person?" she asked, pen poised over her clipboard. I tried to explain that Emma was my sister, that I'd only been in the kitchen, that I never imagined she'd give alcohol to a baby. "Did you know she had a drinking problem?" Mrs. Patterson pressed. "She drinks socially, but, so you knew she drank excessively and still left her alone with your infant?" Jake squeezed my hand as I broke down crying. We were victims here, but somehow I was being interrogated like I'd endangered my own child. Oliver had to stay overnight for observation, hooked up to monitors that beeped every few seconds, each sound a reminder of how badly I'd failed to protect him. Emma didn't answer her phone that night, or the next day, or the day after that. My parents called, having heard from a family friend who worked at the hospital. Mom's first question wasn't, "Is Oliver okay?" It was, "What did you do to upset Emma?" That should have been my first warning about whose side they'd take. While Oliver recovered, physically at least, I dove into research about infant alcohol exposure. The potential long-term effects made me sick. Developmental delays, behavioral problems, learning disabilities. We wouldn't know for months or years if that single incident had changed our son's future forever. A week after the incident, Emma surfaced on social media. No apology, no checking if Oliver was okay. Instead, she posted a long, rambling message about how toxic family members were trying to destroy her reputation and how she was being persecuted for a simple mistake. The comments poured in from her friends, people who didn't know the full story, offering support and calling us monsters. She'd painted herself as the victim, claiming I'd overreacted to her accidentally dropping the baby, conveniently leaving out the part about the wine in his system. Jake wanted to respond, to set the record straight, but our lawyer— yes, we needed a lawyer now— advised against it. "Document everything," she said. "Every post, every comment, every attempt at contact. You're building a case. A case. Against my own sister. This wasn't how family was supposed to work." 2 weeks later, Emma showed up at our door at 2 a.m., pounding and screaming. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "Let me see him. He's my nephew. You can't keep him from me." Jake called 911 while I held Oliver in the nursery, both of us crying. The police took her away, but not before she'd woken up half the neighborhood, spinning her story about cruel relatives keeping her from her family. The next morning, my parents called. Dad's voice was stern, disappointed. "You had your sister arrested? What's wrong with you? She made a mistake. She's getting help." "Getting help?" I asked. "Where? When?" "She's going to start AA meetings. She promised us." Emma had been promising to get help for years. Nothing ever changed. But my parents wanted to believe her, needed to believe her, because admitting their youngest daughter had a serious problem meant admitting they'd enabled it for years. They invited us to Sunday dinner that week, their traditional peacemaking gesture. Emma won't be there, Mom assured me. Just come. We need to talk about this as a family. I should have known it was a trap. The moment we walked into my parents' house, Oliver in his carrier and Jake beside me, I saw her. Emma, sitting at the dining table with a glass of wine in her hand, wearing a dress I recognized as one of Mom's, probably because she'd lost her apartment again. You said she wouldn't be here, I said, already turning to leave. Mom blocked the door. Honey, you need to forgive her. She's your sister. Oliver needs his aunt. Oliver needs to be safe, Jake said, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it when talking to my parents. Emma stood up, swaying slightly. I went to rehab, she announced. I got help. I wrote you a letter. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, clearly written 5 minutes before we arrived. The rehab she claimed to have attended? A quick call later would reveal no record of her at any facility in the state. The letter was full of hollow apologies and promises, the same ones I'd heard a dozen times before. We're leaving, I said, pushing past my mother. That's when Emma lunged for Oliver's carrier. Let me just hold him once. Just let me apologize to him. Jake pulled the carrier back so fast Emma fell forward, wine splashing across Mom's white tablecloth. She started sobbing, the manipulative kind of tears she'd perfected since childhood. My parents immediately rushed to comfort her, shooting us accusatory looks. You're tearing this family apart, Dad said. No, I replied, finding strength I didn't know I had. She is. And you're letting her. We left and didn't look back. In the car, Jake said something that would prove prophetic. This isn't over. She's going to escalate. He was right. The next few weeks brought a campaign of harassment that made me understand why people get restraining orders against family members. Emma would call from different numbers after we blocked hers. She'd send gifts to our house, baby clothes soaked in wine with notes like, for when you stop being a bad mother. She created fake social media accounts to message our friends, telling them we were abusing Oliver and she was trying to save him. The grocery store incident happened on a Tuesday afternoon. Oliver was fussy. I was exhausted from nights of checking our security cameras, and I just needed to grab formula and get home. I was comparing prices when I felt that prickle on the back of my neck, the one that tells you you're being watched. She was at the end of the aisle, partially hidden behind a display of cereal boxes. Emma, watching us with an intensity that made my blood run cold. When our eyes met, she smiled and started walking toward us. I abandoned my cart and ran, actually ran through the grocery store with Oliver's carrier banging against my hip, other shoppers staring as I fled. Emma followed, calling out, I just want to talk. Why are you being so dramatic? The store security guard, bless him, saw my panic and intercepted her while I made it to my car. I sat in the parking lot, doors locked, hands shaking so badly I couldn't get the key in the ignition for 3 tries. That's when I saw it, a note under my windshield wiper. You can't hide forever, he's my blood too. The police said it wasn't enough for a restraining order. She hadn't actually threatened us, hadn't touched us. Following someone in a public place wasn't necessarily illegal. The note was concerning, but not explicitly threatening. Jake took time off work. We couldn't both leave the house anymore. One of us always stayed home with Oliver while the other ran errands. We installed more cameras, changed our locks, varied our routines. We were prisoners in our own lives. My parents, meanwhile, were fully on Emma's side now. Mom called me crying, saying I was destroying the family, that Emma was getting help, she wasn't, that she deserved a second chance. She'd had dozens. They threatened to sue for grandparents' rights if we didn't let them bring Emma to see Oliver. Our lawyer assured us they had no case, but the threat hung over us like a storm cloud. Every knock at the door made my heart race. Every unknown car parked too long on our street sent me into a panic. This wasn't living, it was surviving. The break-in happened while we were at Oliver's 6-month checkup. We came home to find the back door jimmied open, muddy footprints through the kitchen, and a gift in Oliver's nursery. It was a basket of baby items, clothes, toys, a bottle. Everything reeked of alcohol. The clothes were soaked in wine, the toys sticky with what smelled like whiskey. The card in Emma's handwriting read, "Since you won't let me give these to him in person. Blood is thicker than water, but wine leaves a stronger stain." This time, the police took it seriously. Breaking and entering, even without theft, was a crime. The wine-soaked items in a baby's room showed clear intent to harm or intimidate. They dusted for fingerprints, took photos, collected evidence. But Emma was smart enough not to leave prints. She'd worn gloves. The security footage showed a figure in a hoodie, face obscured, right build but not definitively her. Without solid proof, charges couldn't be filed. That night, Jake and I made a decision. We were done playing defense. We hired a private investigator, someone recommended by our lawyer who specialized in stalking cases. Within a week, he had what we needed. Photos of Emma watching our house from her car, video of her following me to 3 different stores, records showing she'd been fired from her latest job for showing up drunk, statements from neighbors who'd seen her trying to peek in our windows, a paper trail of the fake social media accounts she'd created to harass us. We filed for a restraining order and, this time, got it. Emma was ordered to stay 500 feet away from us, our home, and Oliver's daycare. She couldn't contact us directly or through third parties. Violation would mean jail time. You'd think that would be the end of it. You'd be wrong. My parents were furious. How dare we get a legal order against family? They showed up at our house, demanding we rescind it. When we refused, Dad said something I'll never forget. When that boy grows up and asks why he doesn't know his aunt, you'll have to explain that you chose your pride over family. No, Jake replied. We'll tell him we chose his safety over an addict who refused to get help. For 2 months, things were quiet. Too quiet. Emma had disappeared from social media, wasn't calling my parents, hadn't been seen at any of her usual haunts. The private investigator lost track of her. It should have been a relief, but instead, it felt like the calm before a storm. We started to relax slightly. Oliver was hitting all his milestones despite our fears about the alcohol exposure. Jake went back to regular shifts. I returned to work part-time, leaving Oliver with a carefully vetted daycare that had been fully briefed on the situation. Then came the letter from a lawyer. Emma was suing us for defamation, emotional distress, and alienation of familial affection, a legal term I didn't even know existed. She claimed our false accusations had cost her jobs, relationships, and her reputation. She wanted $100,000 in damages. Our lawyer laughed when she read it. This is what we call a nuisance suit. She has no case, but she knows you'll have to spend money to defend against it. The real point wasn't to win money. It was to force us to see her in court, to make us sit in the same room while she played victim, to drain us financially and emotionally until we gave in and let her back into Oliver's life. We countersued. For the break-in, the harassment, the emotional distress of nearly losing our son to alcohol poisoning, our lawyer submitted everything: the hospital records, the police reports, the PI surveillance, the wine-soaked baby clothes. The court date was set for 3 months out. 3 months of waiting, of preparing, of reliving the worst moments of our lives in legal documents. 3 months of my parents calling to beg us to drop the suits, to handle this as a family. But we weren't a family anymore. We were 2 sides of a war, with Oliver as the prize. During those 3 months, Emma resurfaced with a new tactic. She'd found religion, she claimed. Started attending a church known for its addiction recovery programs. The pastor, unaware of the full situation, began calling us about forgiveness and healing. Emma had painted herself as a reformed sinner seeking reconciliation with cruel relatives. She was building a character witness list for court. The pastor, the church congregation, a therapist she'd seen twice. Even a few AA members she'd manipulated with her version of events. On paper, she looked like someone who'd made mistakes but was trying to change. We had the truth on our side, but sometimes the truth isn't enough when faced with a master manipulator. The first court appearance was for the restraining order hearing. Emma was trying to get it lifted. She showed up looking like a different person. Gone was the party girl with smeared makeup and wrinkled clothes. This Emma wore a conservative suit, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She looked like a Sunday school teacher. Her lawyer painted a picture of a woman who'd made one mistake while struggling with grief over a miscarriage none of us had heard about before that moment. She'd sought help immediately, he claimed, showing receipts from an online therapy app and a registration for a virtual AA meeting. My client has maintained sobriety for 4 months, he lied smoothly. The PI's photos of her buying wine were from 5 months ago, just barely outside the time frame. Then it was our turn. Our lawyer presented the evidence methodically. The hospital records showing Oliver's blood alcohol level, the security footage of Emma fleeing the scene, the wine-soaked baby clothes, the surveillance showing her stalking us after the initial incident. Emma cried at all the right moments, shook her head sadly when the evidence was presented, as if she couldn't believe we'd go to such lengths. She'd learned to play the victim perfectly. But then our lawyer played the ace card, a video the PI had taken just 2 weeks ago. Emma, supposedly 4 months sober, stumbling out of a bar at 2 a.m., vomiting in the parking lot, driving away in her car. The timestamp was clear. Her sobriety was a lie. The judge's face hardened. He'd been somewhat sympathetic to Emma's act, but now he saw through it. The restraining order was not only upheld but extended for 5 years. Emma lost it. The mask slipped. She screamed that we'd ruined her life, that Oliver would hate us when he grew up, that she'd make sure he knew what monsters we were. Security had to drag her out while she spat threats that her lawyer desperately tried to claim were just emotional outbursts. My parents, who'd been sitting behind Emma in support, looked shocked. This was the first time they'd seen her true face, the one she'd hidden behind tears and promises. Mom caught my eye as they left, and for the first time, I saw doubt there. The defamation suit was dismissed quickly. Emma's lawyer dropped it after the restraining order hearing, probably realizing it was a lost cause. But that didn't mean Emma was done. 2 weeks after the court hearing, we were at the park. Oliver was 9 months old, just starting to pull himself up on things, laughing at the ducks in the pond. It was the first normal moment we'd had in months. I was pushing him on the baby swing when I saw her, not Emma, my mother. She walked over slowly, like she was approaching a wild animal. "Please," she said. "Can we talk?" Jake took Oliver to the sandbox, staying close but giving us space. Mom looked older, tired, like she'd aged years and months. "I didn't know," she said finally. Or maybe I didn't want to know. "Emma, she's sick, isn't she? Really sick." I wanted to scream, "I've been telling you that," but I just nodded. "Your father still thinks you're overreacting," Mom continued, "but I saw her at the courthouse. That wasn't my baby girl. That was someone I don't recognize." She told me Emma had been living with them but had been kicked out after she stole Dad's credit cards and maxed them out on alcohol and online shopping. She'd broken into their liquor cabinet after they'd locked it, had sold family heirlooms for drinking money. "We're getting her help," Mom said. "Real help this time. Involuntary commitment if necessary." It was too little. Too late for our relationship. But maybe not for Emma. Maybe. We were having this conversation, this moment of possible reconciliation, when we heard the scream. Not Oliver, another child, but it made everyone turn, including us. That's when Emma made her move. She'd been hiding behind the playground equipment, waiting. While everyone was distracted, she ran to the sandbox where Jake was kneeling with Oliver. She grabbed for our son, actually got her hands on him before Jake reacted. What happened next was chaos. Jake pulling Oliver back. Emma falling forward into the sand. Other parents screaming, calling 911. Emma trying to crawl toward Oliver, crying that she just wanted to hold him, just wanted to say goodbye. The police arrested her on the spot. Violation of the restraining order, attempted kidnapping, assault. This time, there would be jail time. Emma got 18 months. The judge, seeing the pattern of escalation, the violation of the restraining order, and the attempted kidnapping in a public place, decided she was a danger to others. She was also ordered to complete a rehabilitation program in prison and undergo psychiatric evaluation. My parents finally understood. Dad apologized, Mom cried, but the damage to our relationship was done. We couldn't trust them anymore. They'd chosen Emma over Oliver's safety too many times. We maintained limited contact, supervised visits with Oliver, holiday cards, the occasional phone call, but the close family we'd once been was gone. 6 months into Emma's sentence, we got a letter from her. Not an apology, not really. More of a stream of consciousness about how we'd destroyed her life, how Oliver would grow up to hate us, how blood meant nothing to us. Our lawyer added it to the file, evidence for when she got out and inevitably violated the restraining order again. But then something unexpected happened. The psychiatric evaluation revealed Emma had bipolar disorder exacerbated by alcohol abuse. Proper medication, therapy, and forced sobriety in prison led to a different person emerging. The letters stopped. When Mom visited her, she reported that Emma seemed calmer, clearer, more like the sister I remembered from before the drinking started. Oliver is 2 now. He's perfect. No developmental delays, no signs of the early alcohol exposure affecting him. He doesn't know he has an Aunt Emma. Maybe someday, when he's older, we'll have to explain. But not now. Not while the wounds are still fresh. Emma gets out in 6 months. The restraining order is still in effect for 3 more years. She's not allowed to contact us, to come near us, to be part of Oliver's life. Maybe that will change someday. Maybe medication and therapy and sobriety will stick. Maybe she'll become someone safe enough to know her nephew. But that's not my concern anymore. My concern is the little boy who calls me Mama, who trusts me to keep him safe, who doesn't need to know that sometimes the monsters aren't under the bed. They're in your own family tree. People still tell me I'll regret cutting off my sister. That family is family, that forgiveness is divine, that Oliver needs his extended family. But those people didn't see their baby with alcohol in his system. They didn't live in fear for months. They didn't have to choose between family loyalty and their child's safety. I chose Oliver. I'll always choose Oliver. And if that makes me a bad sister, a bad daughter, a bad person in some people's eyes, so be it. Because here's what I learned through all of this. Blood may be thicker than water, but it's not thicker than wine when that wine is in your baby's bloodstream. Family isn't about DNA. It's about who shows up, who protects, who puts a child's safety above their own comfort. Emma is my sister by blood, but she stopped being my family the day she endangered my son. And that's a boundary I'll never, ever cross again. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt, some relationships aren't worth saving, and some people, no matter how much DNA you share, aren't safe to have in your life. That's not giving up. That's growing up. That's being a mother. And I'd make the same choice again tomorrow.